Thank you. It's an honor for you to be here. I'm actually substituting for Douglas Hyatt, who is my best friend, in addition to being an attorney that I work with in Washington State. And I again want to acknowledge the tremendous work that Douglas Hyatt is doing in Washington State. And I want to state for the record that I'm not an activist, I'm not pro-medical marijuana, I'm not against medical marijuana, I'm neutral. Why do I say that? Because I serve as an expert witness. I've probably done this rather painfully, probably 20 to 30 times now, and I have to maintain neutrality to be a credible expert witness. But what it has driven me to see is the remarkable unfairness. I think the panel already has pointed out some of the horrific cases. I have actually had my medical expertise questioned by a judge. And if Douglas were here, he would tell you in more detail. I've been blocked from testifying. Certain parts of my testimony have been blocked from jurors. The jurors have been told to disregard that. I've actually had my qualifying testimony. Frequently, I'm a consultant, so there may be an attending physician that I come in as an expert witness. So I've had my opinion questioned by prosecuting attorneys and by judges. Even in the 60-day supply rule up in Washington State, I've had law enforcement actually say that they have numbers that they feel are more appropriate, even though my work that I've done with others, including Donald Abram, has been published in peer-reviewed journals. So again, I just echo the sentiment I said this morning, is we all need to be active. And I said that tongue-in-cheek, saying I'm not an activist, but I say that for the sake of being an expert witness. But we all need to be politically active. What I want to talk about briefly today is some travesty of bioethics that occurred in Washington State. You may have heard the name John Guerin. John Guerin, in addition to being a fantastic human being, was also a lead singer in a Steely Dan tribute band. And for those of us that are around my age, 50, Steely Dan is just a pinnacle of musical excellence.
Yeah.
I recall listening to Steely Dan albums when I was in medical school to keep my sanity. John Guerin was denied a liver transplant on the basis of basically a positive drug test for cannabis. He was quickly labeled a drug addict, an illicit drug abuser. The interesting thing about John was that he was actually medically authorized. He had a private practice physician authorize him, and then I wrote a second authorization. And despite the testimony of many experts, myself included, Douglas Hyatt, Neil Agarwal, a bunch of other doctors that weren't even associated with this, John was denied a liver transplant, and his common law wife and his 2 kids watched him slowly die in Harvard Medical Center. And I think it represents one of the greatest bioethical tragedies in my career. I think Dale did a far better, whoops, this thing's not advancing here. Dale's already done a better job than I can do. I don't consider myself an expert in drug testing. I've kind of had to learn this. In fact, I recently testified when I was going on and on about medical marijuana. The judge says, "Where did you learn all this?" And I said it was self-taught, somewhat slyly, but that's the purpose. That's what Dr. Dave Bierman mentioned this morning, and Frank Lucido as well. The three of us here are the sole members, I think, here of the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine. Our goal is to create a society for physicians to come to learn about medical marijuana. I think the three of us and the others that are involved in this, we are self-taught. I mean, you don't learn about medical marijuana in medical school or residency. There's almost no continuing medical education available. So hopefully, with the foundation of this society, we will have a site for physicians to come to. We'll have a certifying examination and an ability to maintain continuing medical education so that family practice doctors, people that are on the front line of medicine, can authorize their patients. Drug testing is terrible, and Dale mentioned it's not FDA approved. This was a recent study, I think, that actually Dale sent me, that even after 7 days of abstinence in 19 participants, 13 still tested positive That was a very recent test. I recently had to write a report on another patient that got what they call green DUI. He hit a motorcycle. He was making a left-hand turn against traffic, and the motorcycle kind of came out from behind a car, and the motorcycle hit him. But as you know, if you're cutting left against traffic, you are the one that are cited. None of the cops thought he was impaired. Nobody even bothered to do roadside testing because he was completely sober and acting appropriately. Just got off work. But because one of the cops thought that there was a potential for vehicular manslaughter, they blood tested him, and he came back positive. And at that point, he was arrested and put in jail. That was happening on the basis of a positive blood test. Actually, he did have a very small amount of THC, and then the rest of it was THC acids. This guy was a chronic user. I went through the records. He'd been using for 20 years. For the last 10 years, he was medically authorized. He was also on methadone and short-acting oxycodone, which I would consider far more impairing. But the point of the fact is, we believe we are going to win the case. This hasn't yet come to trial, but the point of the fact is, he wasn't impaired by anybody's assessment at the roadside. So really, I think Dr. Geringer pointed this out, it's really a question of, are you impaired, no matter what the substance is. If you're sniffing glue, you're not impaired to drive a car. But if you are impaired, the onus of impairment really falls on the driver or the worker. The problem is when you come back with a dirty test, either blood or urine.